What's up, art students? This is Mr. Culp. I wanted to walk you through some pointers and little tips and tricks for the Zentangle landscape design that you're going to be working on for your next project. I'm basically decided to split this into 2 videos. Instead of you watching me do this entire project and maybe being bored out of your mind doing that whole process, I'm gonna just walk through a couple quick little pointers with Procreate and some of the different tools that can make this an easier process for you. And then I will probably stop and I'll clip to another video of the whole project, maybe sped up a little bit so you can see all the different designs that you could possibly do, or at least a handful of the designs. And that way it's kind of split up into 2 videos. This whole process, this whole project, it really is about finding your kind of Zen happy place. And that's the whole kind of meaning of a Zentangle design. And back in the day when I was your age, we called this doodling. And it really was just taking any kind of material and just letting yourself create and start in one spot and just start to add on to your drawing and your design and essentially fill the page. So what I'm gonna point out are a couple things that'll help you with that process, and then we'll go on and I'll show you a bunch of different designs that you could do. You will also have a bunch of links on the document that we share with you to different tutorials. You can find a bunch on YouTube that you can use, get ideas from. You can also just find some nice images that I'll link, and that hopefully will get kind of the juices, the creative juices flowing, and you can kind of go from there and create your Zentangle landscape. So a couple quick pointers about Procreate. In the previous video, you saw Mrs. Harrington lay out kind of the overall general landscape design, talking about the foreground and a middle ground and a background. I chose in this design to add some trees or shapes like trees, maybe some lines in the sky for some light rays. But essentially, the main idea is dividing up your canvas into different shapes. And within those shapes, you are going to add your Zentangle designs. One thing that you should definitely be doing is up here, this little ribbon tab. If I click on that, that's the selector tool. So down here at the bottom, you can see how mine says automatic. That means where I'm going to touch is going to select that whole shape. So if I touch this shape, you can see how it turns blue. That means that entire shape is selected. So then I can go to my brush. And for this, I'm going to use a fine point kind of pen. I actually like the inking, a technical pen. There are a bunch of different brushes or pens that you could use and try. There's also some brushes that will give you different patterns and designs just by using them. So you can experiment with that a little bit. But for this, I'm going to use a technical pen. I have selected that area. So now everything that I draw, even if I draw outside of that shape, it's only going to draw inside the selected area, which is really nice. Okay, so that'll kind of help you at least eliminate some headache from trying to not draw in the shapes that you've just drawn. Remember, if I don't want something, this is an awesome opportunity using your technology to undo. If I just use 2 fingers and tap, I can undo. Okay. Now, a couple pointers with Zentangle. In my classroom, over and over again, I would remind you guys to try and use the best possible craftsmanship that you can. And that is, anytime you're working on artwork, that is a very important thing to do. Use that craftsmanship, make it the best that you possibly can. And especially with this technology, you can take some risks and you can try different things. And if it doesn't work, you just undo it. If I want to create a bunch of lines, so let's, even if I don't use my Apple Pencil or stylus, I can just do this with my finger. If I want to do a bunch of just straight lines back and forth, I can start to draw them. But if I'm just going quick, it's going to start to maybe look a little sloppy. But if I really take my time, I'm going to zoom in, so I can use my two fingers, I can pinch and zoom in on areas. And now I can actually take, and I'm going to take my time and I'm going to draw those lines, and I'm going to be a little bit more careful. And I'm going to make them pretty close together. And so when I zoom out, you can see the difference between those two. This looks a little bit more elaborate or a little bit more complex than just these kind of randomly spaced lines, okay? So trying to take your time and put that extra craftsmanship in any design you do. You can also do something, you could have some fun with pattern and using different line quality. So if I have this line thickness, but then I make it a little bit thicker, I'll make it a little bit thicker, make it a little bit thicker, and then I can start to make it thin again. So I could do some cool patterns just by adjusting the thickness of my line. So that would be something cool that you can experiment with, okay? So that's just one kind of general thing to remember, is that overall craftsmanship with the lines and how you're drawing them and where you're drawing them. The second thing that I wanted to kind of point out, and again, this is just pointing out a couple quick little important things to remember, and then I'll show you in a second video, I'll do this whole thing with all the different Zentangle designs that you could use. But another thing to remember, if I select this area, so now this one's selected, a lot of the idea of Zentangle is starting with something simple, like a simple shape, repeating shape, or simple lines, and then building onto it. So for this, I'll use my pencil. A lot of the designs that you can do, let's make that a little bit thinner, can start off with a simple pattern. So I'm gonna purposely make these lines spread out, but notice how they're spread out pretty evenly. And then I'm gonna turn it this way, and I'm gonna do lines across. And this is kind of making like a square checker pattern. A lot of the designs that you'll see on these tutorials, they start with a simple design like this or pattern like this, and then they build onto it. So I could finish this a number of different ways, but just starting with this design and this pattern will give me kind of that plan. So now I could take this a bunch of different ways. I could add shapes to each line like this, and I could kind of come in. And as you draw, you will find faster ways to do this. So if I want to draw these bumps, I can kind of just make it one continuous line. And that would make it go a little faster, right? And then I could come in and do it this way. But notice how I'm taking my time and I'm using my craftsmanship. I'm making it the best that I can. That is the thing to remember. You will kind of lose track of your time. This is a nice way to pass the time. And when you're done, you'll have this really nice creation. So now I'm gonna build onto that. I don't really have this planned out. I'm just letting my creative thought start to fill in the design. Maybe just add an X. So you can see how this simple checker pattern, I continued with it and I gave it that more elaborate shape, okay? Or that more elaborate pattern and design, right? So the whole Zentangle is kind of based off of that. that same idea. Taking, repeating shapes and lines and patterns and continuing on with them, filling in spaces. Try to have some awareness of your line quality and what you're doing. And before you know it, the whole thing will be filled in with all these really cool patterns and shapes and designs. And then the next video, after you see me do all of that, Mrs. Harrington will have another video linked that will show you a couple other really cool things you can do with color to kind of finish this whole project off. Okay, so a couple things to remember: use that selector tool. That makes things a lot easier. If I want to select one area, I can, and that way my drawings will not go out of that area. That'll save you a little bit of headache. And then really play with the line quality and how you're drawing and where you're drawing those lines. Try and avoid quick and sloppy, right? Put the best quality craftsmanship you can into it. Okay, so I'll stop this video and I will continue on with my design, and I will make it a little bit faster so it goes a little bit faster for you to watch, and that will hopefully give you a bunch of different ideas, as well as the links that you can kind of go and watch those tutorials, and then just have some fun with this. This is a nice, fun project that you can do. And yeah, hopefully it all goes well, and have fun with it, and stay safe and stay at home and do some artwork. Thanks, guys.